What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to why don't we eat carnivores? And this is something that I have no idea why. I mean, in terms of fish, I guess we eat some fish that eat other fish, but that's not a carnivore, obviously, because they're fish. It's different. But I think that's really the closest to being a eating carnivore type meats we come to, because when it comes to meats, some people eat like alligators, or is it crocodiles? I don't know if you can eat both or if it's one or the other. But I know that's a thing that people do eat in regions where those things are alive. But in general, we just eat like cows, chickens, all those kinds of meats, lamb, just those sorts of meats, right, that eat purely grass or grains or whatever it is. But we're going to see why we don't eat this. Is it an actual like physical thing, or is it just over time because we're more accessible to, I guess because carnivores would eat humans for starters, right? So it would make it harder to harvest them in the first place, to eat them and to farm them and stuff like that. So carnivores, because they don't do anything to humans, we chose them as the option because they were easier to make food from. But yeah, we're going to check this out. Hopefully going to enjoy. Links are in the description to my Patreon, where you can see reactions that I can't post to YouTube. But let's check this out.
Cows, pigs, chickens, deer, rabbits. These are all...
Never eaten rabbit in my life. Not once. And I have no idea what it tastes like. Because you look at them, they're quite bony. They're quite small. So I don't really know what meat you could get. But maybe it's good.
Animals that humans around the world regularly eat. But for the most part, the animals we eat don't eat animals. At least not only animals. Humans basically only dine on herbivores and omnivores. Why do we steer clear of carnivores? Hi, I'm Kate, and this is Minute Earth. I am a...
So like eating a vulture, right? Because vultures tend to eat dead animals. Surely then eating that, because it's just what it consumes is what it is. If you're eating an animal that lives off eating rotten flesh, that can't be good for a human, right? Which is probably a good reason why we don't eat those kinds of animals. But some animals will just eat fresh, I assume. I mean, I don't know if all carnivores will also eat like dead animals, rotten animals that have already like died. I say rotten as if they're like rotting away, but maybe not that extreme, but just animals that are dead. Eating that would not be good for you, but at the same time, maybe it's only a few that do that specific thing.
Lover of carnivores and food. So when I sank my teeth into this question, I thought I already had a pretty good idea of what the answer was going to be. But there are actually several really interesting possibilities out there about why we generally keep carnivores off the menu. The first reason we might avoid eating carnivores, and this was my go-to hypothesis before this video, is the safety, or really the unsafety, of their meat. As animals live their lives, they pick up potential nasties, things like parasites, microbes, and heavy metals, some of which can hang around in their bodies and cause harm. When one animal eats another, it adds that animal's nasties to its own nasties. Damn. When that animal eats...
Makes sense. It's just I don't really picture it like that, so... Okay, now we can actually record without any interferences. Let's just get back a little bit. Alright, food safety from animals consuming other animals.
Adds that animal's nasties to its own nasties. When that animal eater eats another animal, it'll ingest all that animal's nasties. And if something should eat the eater, it'll nom up all those animals' nasties. The idea is that eating animals that eat lots of other animals might expose us to more nasties, and that's not great. We do know that certain animal-eating species do contain high enough levels of certain nasties that make them potentially dangerous for certain humans to consume. But we don't have evidence that this problem applies to humans eating carnivores in general. So let's move on to the second hypothesis, deliciousness. Maybe animals that only eat other animals just don't taste all that good. And because we're dealing with deliciousness, I'm gonna hop over into Minute Food Land for this one. Now, there are a few reasons why carnivore meat might not be particularly tasty. The first is texture. Carnivores tend to be lean, mean hunting machines. They have to be in order to catch their prey. The leaner and stronger an animal is, the less juicy fat it contains, and the thicker its bundles of muscle fibers are. So the tougher its meat is likely to be. And in general, humans aren't big fans of tough meat. Then there's flavor, because what an animal eats can affect how it tastes. That's why some people care whether they're eating grass-fed or grain-fed beef. Maybe something about eating lots of other animals, like the urea critters tend to contain, or the icky compounds produced when meat sits around, makes a carnivore's meat taste gross. And there is some anecdotal evidence for this. People who've eaten bear during different seasons of the year tend to say that spring bears, which have been gorging on berries, are way tastier than fall bears.
So people do eat bears. Are there people that hunt bears and then eat? Imagine that you hunt, like you sort of have a hobby, and your hobby is hunting bears, and then you eat bears. That's just got to be one of the most unique hobbies, like 1 in a million hobbies in the world. Maybe not a hobby, but maybe just when you're on a hunt and then you find a bear, and you're like, you know what, that'll taste good.
Have been feasting on fish. Speaking of fish, though, there is a big exception to this whole humans don't eat carnivores thing.
There we go.
Several of the fish species we eat only eat other animals, and they don't taste bad. Quite the opposite, really. So I'd go so far as to say that the taste hypothesis doesn't hold up, at least not broadly across all carnivores. Let's go back to Minute Earthland to chat about the third hypothesis, inefficiency. At least in modern times, producing enough meat to feed big groups of big hungry humans has generally required raising animals for their meat. And doing this with carnivores just doesn't make that much sense.
Imagine having a flock of crocodiles in your farm. That would not be a good source of getting food for sure.
There's the matter of them seeing us as food, but the bigger problem is that raising carnivores is kind of a waste. If you feed, say, a cow 10,000 calories of grass, most of that energy goes into keeping the cow alive. Only about 10% of it goes into building body mass. So from all this grass, you'll only end up with something like 1,000 calories of beef. That's basically just a couple steaks. And if you feed those 1,000 calories of beef to, say, a tiger, you'll only get 100 calories of tiger meat. It is way more efficient, and easier, to just eat the beef yourself. It's even more efficient to eat the plants yourself, but that is a whole other video.
Is it? I mean, I guess if you see the cow per cow, but at the same time, who wants to just eat grass and stuff? That's the fascinating, idea, because I always assumed that meat was a lot more efficient in terms of you get a lot more for what you're eating, which you do because you get a small steak, you get a lot more. You're gonna have to eat a lot more grass or whatever you're gonna eat, fruits or vegetables, etc., to have the same amount of calories and give yourself the same amount of energy and all that sort of stuff. That's why I mix it, have a bit of greens, have a bit of meat, you're good to go.
This hypothesis, inefficiency, is the only one that's actually supported by the weird fact that we do eat carnivorous fish. The very same energy loss happens in the ocean, too. But since we've spent most of history just opportunistically catching fish, rather than raising them ourselves, inefficiency here hasn't really mattered to us. But there's still one more hypothesis for why humans don't generally eat carnivores: religion. Judaism does not allow the eating of predators, and the Quran bars eating animals with fangs or talons, which
Does it? I didn't know that at all. So, chickens have claws, no? But I'm pretty sure Muslims eat chicken. Unless maybe chicken's claws aren't as big as I'm thinking. Maybe they're not claws, they're just sharp. I don't really know what they'd be called.
discounts lots of animals that eat only animals. It's not unusual for behaviors to start out as religious practices, then spread outwards and become relatively commonplace. Humans' avoidance of carnivores as a food source may have followed a similar trajectory. Although note that it's possible, likely really, that religious rules about eating carnivores are rooted in other reasons to avoid eating these animals.
Dang.
For example, unsafety, or at least people's perceptions of unsafety, could lead to these kinds of restrictions. Deliciousness, too, could be related to the other hypotheses. Like, if carnivore meat was risky to consume, it's likely that we'd evolve a distaste for it, just like we've evolved to dislike bitter foods, many of which contain potentially dangerous compounds. In other words, this carnivorous culinary conundrum is complicated. And since nobody out there is actually studying it, we don't have a solid answer for why we gobble up cows and chickens, but steer clear of tigers and eagles. But this question is good food for thought, and I, for one, have enjoyed chewing on the possibilities. Since we got on our carnivore kick, we have been having a blast playing Beast Lord.
Oh, there's Q in the bag as well. Secure that money. Well, there we go. This is why we don't eat carnivores, and it makes you think. It does make you think, but no, seriously, it's one of those things. I guess just over time, it's easier to do. People do eat them. If you're a hunter, if you're someone who hunts, actively goes out and searches to catch and kill, I assume you, like those people, will eat carnivores a lot more than the average person, right? Again, I've seen gator meat. Apparently, it tastes a bit like chicken. I find that hard to believe, but I've seen videos of people catching and then cooking and then doing all that stuff. And yeah, they'll make. I think I saw someone chop it up into like cubes, or maybe not cubes, like sort of fillets, and then bread it like chicken. And then they had like gator nuggets or whatever. Which, I mean, I have no idea what gator would taste like, but if you like it, then it must be good. But yeah, hopefully you enjoy this reaction. I mean, imagine someone making grizzly bear nuggets or something like that. That is something I can't even imagine. Or flipping vulture nuggets, whatever you're making. But yeah, hopefully you found this interesting. Let me know your thoughts on this. And if you're someone who's eating carnivorous animals, not carnivores. If you're someone who's eating carnivorous animals, let me know how it compares, and let me know what animals you've eaten. I'd be interested in that. Because again, the only ones I'd say I've eaten are salmon, tuna. Have I ever eaten a carnivorous like land meat? I don't think I have. I guess pork. I mean, farmed pigs aren't gonna eat other animals, but I know wild pigs will eat meat. But yeah, I don't think I have. But yeah, there's this video. Hopefully you found this interesting, and until next time, like, subscribe, and peace.